Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Learning Biology with Dr. Vanessa, where we take difficult biological concepts and make them easy to understand. Today, we will be discussing the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood. In previous videos, we have discussed how the blood is responsible for transporting gases between the lungs and cells of the body. In this video, we will specifically discuss the chemical reactions that happen to aid in gas transport and exchange. Let's start with oxygen. When you take a breath in, oxygen then enters into the lungs, and then it's going to diffuse into your bloodstream. Oxygen does not dissolve easily in water, so only about 1.5% of oxygen that comes into the body through the lungs is dissolved in blood plasma. The majority of oxygen, about 98.5%, is going to bind to the hemoglobin in red blood cells. Hemoglobin acts like a delivery truck carrying oxygen from your lungs to tissues throughout your body. Now, your tissues are made up of cells, and all of those cells are going to need that oxygen in order to survive. So those cells get the oxygen and nutrients like glucose in order to undergo cellular respiration, which will allow those cells to make ATP, the energy currency of the cell, and allow them to do their job. So it is vital that oxygen reaches the tissues and the cells of the body. Now, as I just mentioned, we're going to find hemoglobin within those red blood cells. And if we take a closer look at hemoglobin, we'll see that there are these heme regions of the hemoglobin molecule, and each heme is going to contain one iron atom. And each of those iron atoms are capable of binding to one oxygen. So one hemoglobin can bind up to 4 oxygen molecules. If we talk about one red blood cell, there's about 280 million hemoglobin molecules. So there is a great deal of oxygen carrying capacity with all of these hemoglobin molecules. Now, oxygen and hemoglobin bind in an easily reversible reaction to form oxyhemoglobin. Now, the blood that has all this oxygen, when the blood gets oxygenated in the lungs, it is going to travel through the arteries to the tissues where it's needed. Since the majority of oxygen is going to be bound to hemoglobin, which means it's going to be trapped in the red blood cells, only that dissolved oxygen in the blood plasma, that 1.5%, can easily diffuse out of the capillaries and into the tissues. So how do we get the oxygen from the hemoglobin to diffuse out? In order for that oxygen to dissociate from the hemoglobin at the tissues, the partial pressure of oxygen in the capillaries needs to be higher than the partial pressure of oxygen in the tissues. And because the blood that is coming to the tissues at this area is highly oxygenated, there is normally going to be more oxygen in the capillaries that is delivering blood to the tissues. Since the tissues have undergone things like cellular respiration, they're going to have less oxygen in the tissues themselves, and this can allow that oxygen to dissociate from the hemoglobin and then enter into the tissues. We just talked about oxygen transport, where the majority of oxygen transport is going to go in the direction of you're taking in oxygen, it's coming into the lungs, it's going into the arteries, and then it's being delivered to the tissues. Now, the majority of carbon dioxide transport is going to go the other way, since carbon dioxide is a waste product of cellular respiration. So carbon dioxide is going to diffuse from your tissues and then into the blood to be released from the body as waste. So the opposite direction that we've been just talking about. Carbon dioxide is transported back to your lungs in 3 primary ways. First, a small amount, about 7% of carbon dioxide, dissolves directly in the plasma. The second way is that about 23% of carbon dioxide is going to bind to hemoglobin, forming a compound called carbaminohemoglobin. The formation of carbaminohemoglobin is greatly influenced by the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. In the tissue capillaries, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is relatively high because these cells are undergoing cellular respiration and releasing carbon dioxide, and so this promotes the formation of carbaminohemoglobin. In the pulmonary capillaries, though, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, and so because of that, carbon dioxide is going to readily leave that hemoglobin. It will split from the hemoglobin and then diffuse into the alveoli so that we can exhale that carbon dioxide out of our body. Most of the carbon dioxide, about 70%, is going to take a different route. It is converted into bicarbonate ions. When carbon dioxide diffuses into the capillaries and enters red blood cells, it's going to encounter an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. This enzyme helps convert carbon dioxide and water into carbonic acid, which quickly breaks down into bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. Bicarbonate is then transported in the plasma. This is the primary method of carbon dioxide transport. When blood reaches the lungs, the process reverses. Bicarbonate is converted back into carbon dioxide, which diffuses into the alveoli and is exhaled. This constant exchange ensures your body maintains the right balance of gases. And that's how oxygen and carbon dioxide are transported in the blood. This is the system that keeps you alive. It allows oxygen to get into the body and reach the cells, and then allows carbon dioxide to be exhaled, that waste product that the cells are making. This allows homeostasis, a balance to be maintained. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and be sure to share it with your friends. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the discussion box below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.